But look, what did it take for us to get to the point of an apology? We had to threaten a lawsuit, Jesse. And by the way, we're still entertaining it. We're talking to some of the best lawyers out there that are experts in this. And as you know, these things can be very complicated. There's a lot of facts and circumstances around it. But we're not going to let this go, because you should not be able to smear 5,000 high school and college kids and then just be able to walk away with it.
It is the show that people love to hate.
Yes, that's true. That's true.
They get so much hate watching and hate watching viral clips of them saying ridiculous things. I mean, it is a rabies infested hen house.
And the reason they felt they needed to do that, Jesse, is because if they told their audience the truth, that when gas is the most expensive it's been, flights are super expensive, that 5,000 kids decided to spend a weekend in summer traveling across the country to go hear from conservative speakers, maybe the audience of The View would think twice about all of their ideas. That's why they felt so compelled to try to smear our wonderful summit this last weekend.
Yeah, they have nothing else to talk about. Maybe you should get the lawyer that worked on that Covington Catholic school case. What was that, a $200 million settlement?
Joe Rogan dropped a truth bomb so sharp that Sunny Hostin looked like she'd just been hit with a sledgehammer of reality. And just when you thought the drama meter couldn't climb any higher, Charlie Kirk stormed into the spotlight with a $100 million lawsuit against The View that has sent shockwaves through the media world. Imagine the chaos. America's most watched daytime talk show being dragged into the courtroom over words that cut too deep. This isn't your run-of-the-mill gossip segment gone wrong. This is legal warfare dressed up in designer heels and TV makeup, and the entire country is watching in disbelief. Charlie Kirk, the fiery founder of Turning Point USA, isn't just asking for an apology, he's demanding a jaw-dropping 9-figure payout.
The culture shift between right and left authoritarianism, and now people don't recognize that if you just stop looking at it in terms of red and blue, look at the actions, whether it's war, suppression of free speech, pharmacological interventions that are mandatory, whatever it is, that used to all be associated with the authoritative right, the authoritarian right, and now those things are being embraced by the left. And I just think it's just an ideology thing, and I think we get confused and we think we're on the right side, and if it's our side that's saying this, for sure that's the right thing to do, and no one's critically thinking about this.
Joe Rogan is the gateway drug for young men that thought they were Democrats to become MAGA. Joe Rogan is the bridge, and on that bridge they'll see RFK, they'll see Elon Musk.
We're talking about the kind of money that could buy private islands, launch space rockets, or bankroll entire presidential campaigns, and he's aiming it right at The View. And then there's Joe Rogan, America's podcast powerhouse, who decided this was the perfect moment to step in and add fuel to the already raging fire. With his trademark sarcasm, Rogan didn't just comment. He detonated a verbal grenade that left the entire situation looking even messier. Why did all of this explode? According to Kirk, the hosts of The View crossed a line, one that isn't just about political banter or opinionated chatter. It's about publicly targeting a group of students in a way that could damage their reputations for life. Kirk claims they went after more than 5,000 young conservatives who had gathered for his summit, painting them in the darkest possible light. Kirk says he's used to taking hits in the political arena. He's a public figure, and that comes with the territory. But going after high school and college students is a different story altogether. He paints this as an attack on kids who were simply there to learn, network, and be inspired, and now have to live under a cloud of suspicion thanks to reckless words spoken on live television. The alleged remarks weren't just off the cuff. They were powerful enough to ignite a legal firestorm. Daytime talk shows are known for heated debates and strong opinions, but this went beyond the boundaries of entertainment into the dangerous territory of defamation. And in walks Joe Rogan, who sees this lawsuit as more than just a headline.
Charlie Kirk's the founder and CEO of Turning Point USA and the author of the new book, The College Scam. So, Charlie, do you accept the View's apology?
I mean, regardless of whether or not I accept it, the question is, do our students accept it? That's really what's at heart here. They went after our 5,000 students at our event there of high school and college kids. And look, I get attacked all the time. People say false things. I'm a public figure. But when you go after 16 and 17-year-olds that travel from across the country that then have to live for the rest of their life with a shadow over them because someone at ABC says that they might be linked to neo-Nazis.
It's a massive wake-up call to a media culture that sometimes treats facts like optional accessories. Rogan has built his brand on no-filter honesty, and this was his chance to shine a spotlight on what he sees as the hypocrisy and carelessness of mainstream outlets. Rogan didn't approach this with caution. He came in swinging, mocking The View for turning itself into a legal hazard. He called out the absurdity of a show that prides itself on being a platform for intelligent conversation, yet allegedly hurled damaging accusations without the kind of evidence any responsible outlet should have. The way Rogan framed it, The View wasn't just reckless, it was like watching someone juggle lit fireworks indoors and acting surprised when the curtains caught fire. His style of humor turned what could have been a dry legal discussion into a must-watch roast that lit up social media. It's not hard to see why this blew up. 100 million isn't just a lawsuit, it's a declaration of war in the media space. It's a figure that screams, "This is serious," and Rogan wasted no time making sure everyone understood just how high the stakes were. He pointed out the irony that Sunny Hostin, a woman with a strong legal background, was now at the center of a potential legal disaster. The very person expected to safeguard against reckless commentary was now, according to critics, one of the main reasons The View was in hot water. This was a narrative twist almost too perfect for television. A lawyer by training, becoming the focal point of a lawsuit over her own on-air words. Rogan pounced on this, calling it a golden example of how hubris and ideology can blind even the most educated voices. His podcast commentary sliced through the polite layers of TV banter and exposed what he saw as the raw truth.
But with that show has this very specific ideological bubble in which they operate in, and they always bring on a token conservative woman and they yell over her and silence her, and they did that with Meghan McCain, and they did that with what is that other blonde woman from Survivor? Do you remember her, Jamie? She was always yelling. I mean, it's a bizarre show. I think the way before you start, I think the way you described it is brilliant, and the way we should all look at it. Of course, you're going to see race. The idea of being colorblind is ridiculous, but treat everybody. They're just human beings. Yeah. Everybody's just individuals.
Mainstream media has grown too comfortable tossing out damaging claims, and now it might be time for a reality check in the form of a multi-million-dollar lawsuit. Rogan also mocked the way The View often brings on token conservative guests only to shout them down. He highlighted how this pattern fits into a broader issue of ideological echo chambers, where dissenting opinions aren't just challenged, they're drowned out entirely. This roasting session wasn't just about Charlie Kirk's case, it was a broader indictment of the culture surrounding daytime TV. Rogan painted a vivid picture of a panel so locked into its own worldview that it couldn't see when it had crossed a dangerous line. Every sarcastic jab Rogan delivered hit its mark, from questioning their fact-checking process to ridiculing the notion that The View could pass itself off as a credible news source while allegedly making such wild statements. Social media lit up with clips of Rogan's takedown, with fans and critics alike agreeing on one thing: he had managed to turn a legal controversy into one of the most entertaining public roast sessions in recent memory. Even those who don't usually side with Rogan found themselves nodding along, not because they agreed with every point, but because his mockery exposed something undeniable. Reckless commentary has consequences, and sometimes those consequences come with a price tag so high it can't be ignored. As part one of this explosive saga unfolds, it's clear this isn't just a story about one lawsuit. It's about the shifting power dynamics between independent voices like Rogan and legacy media giants like The View. The question now is, will this battle end in a quiet settlement?
Her disgusting, gross elitism and her complete out-of-touch nature with respect to the rest of the world. Sunny Hostin goes on The View and decides now would be a great time to dump all over the so-called uneducated.
What we did not have is white women who voted about 52%, right, for Donald Trump. Uneducated white women, is my understanding. You have Latino men, actually, voting more for him. And you have, and black men was not the story. We're not the story here because they voted almost 80% for the vice president.
Right.
Just because you didn't go to college doesn't mean you're stupid, and it doesn't mean that you don't have wisdom. You can go to college and get a bunch of irrelevant facts about how men can allegedly give birth or whatever they teach.
I have no hate for Joy Behar. If I saw her, I'd give her a hug. I'd probably say the same thing about me if I was her. You're worried about losing your job, and you're worried about podcasts taking over, and who's the source of news, and we said Donald Trump was Hitler, but half the country disagreed with us, and he won, and this is fucking great, and Joe Rogan believes in dragons!
Or will it reshape the way daytime TV operates forever? Charlie Kirk's lawsuit gave Rogan the perfect springboard to dive into the deeper issue of how mainstream platforms use their massive reach without respecting the weight of their words. He reminded listeners that reputations aren't just media toys to be tossed around. They're real, fragile, and once damaged, nearly impossible to repair. Sunny Hostin became the centerpiece of his roast, not just because of what she allegedly said, but because of the irony that she should have known better. Rogan spun it like a plot twist in a courtroom drama, the prosecutor who accidentally hands the defense the winning argument. He also made it clear that this wasn't about silencing voices or restricting opinion. It was about holding people accountable when their hot takes transform into dangerous claims. He painted a vivid picture of a TV stage turning into a legal minefield where every careless word could trigger a lawsuit that costs more than most people will earn in a lifetime. The comedy wasn't just for laughs, it was strategic. Rogan's mocking tone made the whole controversy go viral, ensuring that even people who had never watched The View now knew about Kirk's lawsuit and the storm brewing over Sunny Hostin's head. He called out how The View seemed to operate in a protective bubble, safe from pushback, insulated from consequences, and surrounded by applause, whether their points held water or not. Rogan argued that this bubble had finally popped, and the sound was deafening. Then came the part that had everyone choking on their coffee. Rogan mocked how the show positioned itself as a place for intelligent debate, only to allegedly serve up reckless statements without doing the basic groundwork to confirm them.
That's a very strange show, but it's fun to watch. It's just fun to watch them.
It's good entertainment.
Yeah.
Undoubtedly.
Well, they're just, it's interesting because I think Sunny is very intelligent, but she's ideologically captured.
Right.
That's sort of, I think the other ones, there's a couple of the other ones, don't have to name any names, who are just very dull-minded. But I think Sunny's not one of them. I think she's smart, but captured.
Sure, I think she came into it with an agenda.
Of course. They do everything with an agenda.
He compared it to a doctor making a diagnosis based on a horoscope, and the internet lost its mind. The $100 million figure kept coming up, and Rogan made sure to hammer home its significance. This wasn't Twitter fight money. This was sell your mansion, your yacht, and maybe your soul money. He joked that the sum was so massive it could fund a private space mission or buy a small island nation. and yet Kirk was using it to call out a daytime talk show. Sunny Hostin's legal training should have been her shield, but Rogan framed it as her Achilles heel. He emphasized the irony that she, of all people, should have seen the red flags and pumped the brakes before crossing into lawsuit territory. With each example he gave, Rogan painted The View not as a serious platform for dialogue, but as a chaotic echo chamber that prioritized clapping from the studio audience over actual truth. And he didn't stop there. He turned the audience into part of the joke, calling them hand-picked cheerleaders instead of genuine fans. Rogan made it clear that this was no small misunderstanding. This was a media earthquake, the kind that sends aftershocks through the entire industry. He warned that if Kirk won, every host in America would start watching their words like they were live-wiring a bomb. And then came the part that made the internet explode. Rogan laughed at the idea that The View's audience was purely organic. He accused them of stacking the crowd with clappers and cheerers to maintain the illusion of agreement, suggesting that real debate was as welcome there as a protest sign at a parade. The sarcasm was relentless, but underneath it was a clear message. The days of unchecked, consequence-free commentary might be over.
Not really their audience. Their audience is a group of people they bring in to watch television shows. You know, I don't know if you've ever seen audiences before for TV shows, but a lot of them are paid. They're paid to be there. So, because they have to guarantee that there's going to be people there. So there's services that you hire. And when a show gets really, really popular, you know, like Letterman or something like that, obviously it has its own fan base.
Right.
And those people will try to get tickets before anybody else does. And in that case, they probably don't need to use a service anymore. They just get actual fans. But arguably, like, the fans, the real fans of The View that are like, oh, these ladies are on point, most of those people can't leave the house. Like, they're probably immobile.
Right.
Rogan framed the lawsuit as a battle between two worlds: mainstream media, with its polished production and loyal sponsors, versus independent voices who built influence without gatekeepers. In his telling, Kirk's lawsuit wasn't just about defending himself. It was about drawing a line in the sand and daring the media to cross it again. Rogan's roast turned that legal battle into a cultural showdown, one that asked a simple but explosive question: who gets to decide the truth? Sunny Hostin's role was impossible to ignore, and Rogan didn't let it slide. He jabbed at the irony of a legal mind being accused of crossing into defamatory territory, reminding his listeners that intelligence isn't the same as infallibility. His tone was almost gleeful, like he couldn't believe they'd handed him such an easy setup. The more he talked, the more it felt like this wasn't just a takedown. It was an autopsy on a media moment gone wrong. Every careless phrase, every unverified claim was laid out like evidence on a table, with Rogan playing the role of both prosecutor and comedian. The backlash was swift, but Rogan thrived on it. Supporters cheered him for calling out what they saw as arrogance, while critics accused him of exploiting the controversy for clicks and laughs. Either way, the conversation kept growing, and The View found itself in the uncomfortable position of being the punchline to a joke that wasn't going away. By now, the lawsuit had taken on a life of its own. Legal analysts were speculating on outcomes, media watchdogs were dissecting the case, and social media had turned the whole thing into a meme factory.
This is the most important part. This is right after she was saying, we are run by ABC News. You should trust us, not Joe Rogan, who believes in dragons. So she by saying we should trust them because they're double checked by ABC News, and then making the stupidest fucking statement. Like you didn't listen to what I said.
Yeah.
You didn't listen to what the wildlife biologist, and that's only a part of what he said.
I can't
the
believe
other
Joy
part of what he
Behar
said
didn't
was
weigh-
there was something before that where he was explaining encounters with giant reptiles. And then there's
know.
also, listen,
It doesn't make sense to me
There-
that a middle-aged woman could be dumb.
when you're worried about losing your job and
Yeah.
you're worried about podcasts taking over and who's the source.
Rogan's commentary ensured it would stay at the top of the news cycle far longer than anyone at The View probably wanted. He even hinted that this could become the first of many such lawsuits, warning that other public figures might start pushing back harder against reckless talk. His voice carried the weight of a prediction, the kind that makes people wonder if they're watching the start of a bigger trend. In closing, Rogan framed the lawsuit as both a legal drama and a cultural reset. He argued that if nothing else, it had already changed the conversation. People were talking about accountability in media in a way they hadn't before, and that, he claimed, was a victory in itself. Sunny Hostin, whether she wanted to or not, had become the face of that conversation. Rogan made sure everyone knew it, and in doing so, he locked this showdown into the public memory as one of the most chaotic, scandalous, and talked about media clashes of the year. As the story stands, no one knows how it will end. But one thing is certain. The collision between Joe Rogan's brutal commentary, Charlie Kirk's massive lawsuit, and The View's wounded reputation has created a spectacle unlike anything daytime TV has ever seen. The stakes are sky high, the tension is boiling over, and the fallout could reshape the entire landscape of televised debate. And with Rogan's voice echoing across the internet, mocking, dissecting, and relentlessly questioning, it's clear this isn't just a passing headline. It's a moment in media history that will be studied, argued over, and laughed about for years to come. One savage roast, one massive lawsuit, and one talk show on the ropes. That's the recipe for a drama no one will forget.